So I got to see the BFG this morning and I thought it was pretty good. So the BFG is about this orphan girl named Sophie, played by Rudy Barnhill. One night, just like most nights, she is up very late, 3 in the morning, in this orphanage. Well, on this particular night, she sees a giant. And because she's seen him, he whisks her away to giant country, where there are other giants that are far meaner than him. Yeah, thankfully he's a gentle giant that tries to bring dreams to humans, while the other giants would rather just eat the children. Eventually a friendship develops with this orphan girl and this giant. Now I have to say, I have never read the BFG. I know it's a novel. I've actually never read any of his novels, even though I've watched almost all of the movie adaptations of them. So honestly, I didn't know a lot going into this movie. But I was excited because I've heard so much great things about the novel, and it's Steven Spielberg directing, so yeah, I was pretty excited to see it. So let's start off with pretty much the best part of the film for me, and that's the visual style of the film. Now when I see a Steven Spielberg film or some of the other directors that I really enjoy, I know that I'm going to be in for a treat when it comes to the visuals, the camera angles, the music. It is top notch in this film. Now does all the CGI, does all the green screen work perfectly? No, there are definitely some moments where I can see the human characters looking completely out of place. But with that said, even though the giants themselves are very disproportional and look like they could be goofy and could be a little off-putting, there's something about the giants that actually looked realistic, and I don't know if it's because of the facial motion capturing or the textures. There is something really realistic about the giants in this, despite the fact that they are disproportional in size, in an almost cartoony fashion. I mean, our main giant has huge frickin' ears. Both Giant Country and Dream Country is visually pleasing to the eye and has a sense of awe and wonder to them. This definitely has the visual style of a very imaginative and creative world. But even with the visual style and wonder, this film wouldn't have held out if it wasn't for the fact that the two main characters are really great. The whole first half of the film completely relies on them and their relationship and their bonding. If the acting wasn't good enough for that, then the first half of the film could be a drag to sit through. Thankfully, Rudy Barnhill is good as Sophie. She's one of those characters that does have an innocence to her, does have a sense of wonder, but as an orphan, she has taken care of herself and is reliable in that sense. She has an innocence to her and an independentness as well. Even in the first scene when she's walking through the orphanage at night, she seems to be a more competent person than the actual person running the orphanage. And I thought the actress did a good job. Now, there is one thing that could annoy people about her character. I can totally understand if some people could see her as a little bit of a know-it-all, or maybe even a little bit stuck up. While I can understand people feeling that way about her, she didn't feel that way to me, and I liked her character. Mark Rylance as the BFG was really fantastic. The motion capturing of his face was really fantastic and brought a realism to the giant. And in this film it shows that he can have fun and say the craziest things while still being able to have the emotional depth to back it up. I also really like the darker things in this film as well as the sense of danger. There's always a sprinkle of a sense of danger or some really dark thing within most of the film. Even some moments where it's supposed to be a little bit comedic in a slapstick sort of way, there are some sprinkles of danger for the human character Sophie. And there could be a sense of really dark suspense while he's trying to hide her from the other giants. But what really holds the film together is the relationship. This is a human story about a girl and a giant bonding, becoming friends, despite the situation they're in. It's a very character-driven story about relationships, and that's something that really held the film together for me and really kept my interest, and one of the things that I really liked about the film. But I can understand people being completely bored by the first half of the film. Because this is not an adventure story where there's a bunch of action, a bunch of entertainment for kids. No, this is a story about relationships, about characters, and so the first half of the film is mostly them talking, bonding, forming a relationship, and not a lot really going on. A little bit of world building, a little bit of sense of danger as she's hiding from other giants, but other than that, them forming this friendship. I really appreciated that. I thought it was bold, but some people might find it boring. Now the second half of the film does pick up and there becomes a problem and there becomes a moment where they have to solve that problem. Now this film does have some childish humor. I mean, there's a nut shot in the film and there are 2 fart gags. But I do have to say, the second fart gag was really funny, and I think it's mainly because of the build up to that fart gag. Actually, the whole scene in general with the Queen was actually a really funny scene, and you might see a little bit of it in some of the TV spots. I've been seeing that a lot lately. Now it sounds like I'm giving this movie a lot of praise, and for the most part I really enjoyed it. Even some of the worst Steven Spielberg films, or the most mediocre Steven Spielberg films, tend to be really good. However, I did feel there are things missing in the film, or something lacking. Now I understand there's a lot of moments where the film is subtle and they don't overly explain some of the situations, some of the backstory, some of the characterizations. And I definitely love that in films, especially if they give you enough to piece things together or they leave it up to your imagination. However, there are some scenes that I felt needed to be heightened, needed to go a little longer, or needed to be developed more, because there's some moments where I felt like there's something more, I want something more, and I'm just not getting it, and I don't know what it is. And I will say this, the ending of the film is quite anticlimactic, or at least the climax of the film is. Because the first half of the film slows down, gets us to know these characters, gets us to see their bond, their relationship, their friendship. Then it picks up to a more action, it's like, oh, this is going to be the family adventure part of the movie. And then it gets to the climax, you're thinking, oh, this is what's going to happen, it's going to be this big climax, this big battle, and then it's over really, really quickly. I will say this though, none of the scenes in the film, after watching it, after thinking about it, none of the scenes actually feel useless. All the scenes feel like they have purpose and they're built up to something else within the film. I think the film is crafted very nicely. Unfortunately, I feel that some children might get bored with the film because it's not as action-packed, it's not this fun family adventure. It's more of a character-building, relationship, character-driven story that has excitement at the second half of the film. That, and it might be a little hard to understand by some kids and some people because, well, the BFG does talk gibberish throughout the whole film. He says things that he doesn't mean to say, pronounces things wrong, and I can see some people having a hard time understanding a lot of what's going on and not realizing that it's not exactly nonsense, he's just mispronouncing a lot of stuff and making up words as he goes along. I mean, it's meant to be like that. He says he has that condition, but I can see that being too much for some people as well. In the end, I feel the BFG has the potential of being really great, and I can understand people loving this film. I can even understand people hating this film. For me, I'm going to give the BFG 3.5 stars because there's just something really great about it that doesn't feel like it's fully fulfilled. So, have you seen the BFG? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. If not, what is your favorite film adaptation of a Roald Dahl novel? I hope I pronounced that right. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews of 2015 and 2016. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.